So you are ready to get pregnant, but ovulation is taking its sweet ass time every cycle. Let's talk about why this is happening and what you can do to speed things along so you can get pregnant a little bit quicker. If you're new here, my name is Whitney. I'm a fertility dietitian and coach, and I help busy women get out of the Google spiral and get pregnant. As a board certified food and fertility nerd, I've helped hundreds of women figure out their fertility so they can grow the family of their dreams. And in today's video, I'm sharing 5 reasons why your ovulation might be delayed and what you can do about it. As always, this video is meant for educational purposes only and not meant to be a replacement for medical advice. Now, before we get started, why don't we talk a little bit about what it actually means to have delayed ovulation. In general, cycling women experience ovulation about 11 to 17 days after the first day of their menstrual bleed. Now, this number can vary. It can be higher or lower depending on the person, depending on the cycle, but in general, that's a roundabout time. If your ovulation is a little bit delayed though, let's say you ovulate 18 plus days after the first day of your menstrual cycle. This is kind of a pain because if you're trying to get pregnant, you need opportunities. And I discussed this a lot in my previous video about how long it takes to get pregnant up here. You want to check that out. I'm going into big detail there, but in general, if your ovulation is delayed, you're going to have fewer opportunities each year to get pregnant. This can mean that it takes a longer period of time for you to get pregnant. It can also be a red flag of something going on. So if it's taking 20 days, 23 days for you to ovulate each cycle, that can be an indicator that there's something funky with your hormones going on that is delaying this process. And those problems can actually indicate issues that are going to be problematic later down the road with your pregnancy. And so we want to iron out as many of these issues as possible sooner rather than later to make it easier for you to get pregnant faster and to deliver a healthy baby. So here are the top 5 things that I see getting in the way of on-time ovulation. Number 1 is chronic stress. You have heard me talk about chronic stress in my other videos, so this is not new news to you if you've been around here for a while, but let's talk about some of the mechanics and why chronic stress creates issues with your ovulation. When you're experiencing chronically high levels of stress, your body starts pumping out something called cortisol. Now, cortisol is a hormone that your body loves, but only in the right amounts. If we get too much, it's a problem. If we get too little, it's a problem. And so if you have chronically high levels of cortisol, it increases your sex hormone production, your circulating estrogen and testosterone levels, which sounds good because it's sex hormones. More of it would be better, but it's kind of along the same lines. Too much is a bad thing, too little is a bad thing. If you have high estrogen and testosterone, it reduces something called GnRH, or gonadotropin releasing hormone. And that downregulates something called luteinizing hormone. I know these are all technical terms, but what you need to know is that luteinizing hormone, I kind of picture like a field goal kicker for your ovary kicking out the egg every cycle. It helps ramp up your body's sex hormone production. It ramps up the event to ovulation and actually gets the egg out of the ovary. If you don't have enough luteinizing hormone, you're gonna see a delay in ovulation or no ovulation. And so when we're experiencing chronic high stress levels, this does impact your fertility because it directly impacts your sex hormone production. To combat chronically high stress levels, it's gonna take a whole lot more than a vacation or your friend's advice to just relax. You are gonna need a custom action plan, and this is where I recommend working with a professional like myself or a therapist or someone who's a fertility expert in this space who can navigate this with you. The second thing I see that delays ovulation is acute illness. This is actually a protective mechanism. See, humans are unlike other mammals. Once we are pregnant, we cannot will that pregnancy away. Our system can't shut it down. We can't make it go away. We can't abort a pregnancy once it has settled in. And because we cannot do that, other mammals can. When they're in danger, they can protect themselves in those situations. We're not the same. Our bodies want to be in the best place possible before we get pregnant so that we can survive this pregnancy. If you have an acute illness, whether that is a cold, bacterial infection, a virus, if you've been in some sort of physical trauma, like a car accident, or you've had major surgery, you might see that your cycle changes a little bit after that. And that is a good thing. Your body is trying to protect you. And so what it's going to do, if something big like that happens, your brain's going to send signals to your body, hey, bad things are happening. We got to devote all the energy and nutrients into this section over here to help it heal, whether that's your immune system or your cellular function, to help identify and solve those issues first. and it will downregulate your sex hormone production, your egg quality, your nutrients, all of that stuff that are going towards your fertility normally. And so a lot of my clients, myself included, notice that their ovulation is either really early, I've seen that too, or really delayed when they're sick. So if you've had a high fever, you might notice that your ovulation is delayed 3, 4, 5 days. Some women even skip their ovulation that cycle, and their body sort of restarts a month later. If you're experiencing that, this is not something I've got a game plan for, nothing to fix. This is a protective mechanism, but I want you to be aware of it so that if it happens, you're not freaking out or worried. I know I have, but have you ever been so sick that it's messed with your cycle? Comment below. All right, the third thing that I see that delays ovulation is your thyroid function. I have talked about thyroid function probably in almost every video I've done, but your thyroid is this tiny little butterfly gland right at the base of your throat that is highly connected to your metabolic rate and your ovulation. If your thyroid is working slow or sluggish, or on the opposite side, your thyroid is overactive or pumping out too much hormone, it is going to impact your ovulation. I often see in cases of hypothyroidism, where your thyroid is working slowly, where ovulation takes 20 plus days. It's still happening, but it's just taking a very long time to ramp up that production because your metabolic rate, your body is just not functioning optimally. If you are concerned about that, I have this video about lab testing that you want to check out. I talk about thyroid in there. And this is exactly what was going on with my client Kelly. When she came to me, she was experiencing delayed ovulation and short cycles. So her body was taking a very long time to ovulate, and then when she did ovulate, her luteal phase, which is the second half of your cycle, was not long enough to ever achieve a pregnancy. When we took a closer look at what was going on with her entire body, we found out that her thyroid was not only working sluggishly, and she was dealing with something called hypothyroidism, she was also showing signs of autoimmune disease, and her thyroid antibodies were kicked up. After finding this out, we really narrowed down her diet and lifestyle plan to reduce the inflammatory markers, any gut issues that she had going on, make sure she was eating enough throughout the cycle, and setting healthy boundaries at work to reduce her stress. After following this plan for 3 months, she finally saw her ovulation start to regulate at around day 13 to 15. Her luteal phase, that second half of her cycle, lengthened out, and she finally started to see some fertile mucus too. And so thyroid issues are critical to check out and absolutely manageable with the right plan. The next thing that I see is that women are not eating enough. So you are an energetic being. You need calories to sustain your daily activities. If you are only taking in just enough calories to sustain your own bodily functions, it is not going to be supportive for fertility. And I know that's very hard, and it goes against everything that we've been taught growing up. The lower the calories, the more workout is not better for fertility. And so one of the most common things that I see that delays ovulation is where women are chronically under eating and their body just doesn't have enough to devote into egg quality or sex hormone production. And so we gotta make sure that you're eating enough and eating consistently. I made a video earlier about my top diet tips for fertility if you wanna check that out. And the fifth thing that I see that delays ovulation is something called insulin resistance. Insulin's a hormone produced by your pancreas, and it kind of works like how I like to think about it is Pac-Man. So it goes through your bloodstream and it gobbles up glucose to ship to your cells. And each of your cells has these docking sites. And let's say you have millions of docking sites, also called insulin receptor sites. You have millions of them, but let's keep the math really simple. Let's say you have 10 insulin docking sites. So all these cells, the insulin receptor sites can go in here and they connect and they give glucose to your cells, and it's nice and easy. Over time, for a variety of different reasons, whether it's genetics, diet, lifestyle, stress, toxin exposure, there can be a lot of different reasons. Some of these receptor sites start to shut down. So let's say you started out with 10 and now you only have 5. Your body has to manage your blood sugars in the same exact way it did before, but it has less to work with. And so your pancreas will then produce more insulin to do the same job. So what does this mean? When your body has higher circulating insulin levels, it also jacks up your sex hormone production, and it jacks with that hormone that I was telling you about earlier, luteinizing hormone. But instead of causing the luteinizing hormone to go down like it does in stress, it'll cause it to go up. And chronically high LH or luteinizing hormone levels can be problematic for ovulation and delay that ovulation. Regulating insulin levels is a critical piece of the puzzle. So I would recommend, if you're trying to figure this out, check out that video I did earlier on the lab test where I talk about how to test for this. You'll notice that these 5 issues, while problematic, are not problems in and of itself. They're survival mechanisms that your system is utilizing to make sure that you are in the best place possible to support yourself and a pregnancy at the same time. If you're ready to lay the groundwork for your own 2024 pregnancy, I recommend checking out my other videos and be sure to download the Fertile Kickstarter guide that I have linked below, where I'm going to share my top 5 foundational fertility keys. That's all for today, folks. If you are a fellow food and fertility nerd, be sure to comment below and hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.